Today, we become legends.
So I'm sure most of you have seen the data mining of the new starter items by now. If you haven't, then yes, this video is going to be data mining based. It's not completely confirmed information from Hi-Res, but these items are likely going to be very similar, if not the same, to how they are right now when they actually launch with Season 8. But basically, blessings are being removed with Season 8 and being replaced with starter items, kind of like what we had prior to Season 5 when they got removed at the end of Season 4, but they're going to be very different. But essentially the basic goal is that you have like different options for every role, so you're not going to be forced into Mage's Blessing as a mid laner. You're going to have like a bunch of different options, so like 3 or 4 different options that you can kind of go as a mid laner based on your character and your playstyle. And like I said, these are probably pretty much finalized in terms of like overall design at this point, because Season 8 is going to be dropping in like a couple of months, but there'll likely be balance tweaks and things. But this tier list is going to be a little different because I'm going to be doing two different tier lists in one. I'm going to be doing first a design tier list, so how I think the design of the item is, whether I think it's fun or boring, healthy for the game or unhealthy for the game, like frustrating, whatever. And then for the second half of the video, I'll put it in like the timeline bar where you can like separate it, and also in a pinned comment. I'm going to be doing a power level tier list, so how powerful I think the item is going to be. If it's going to be meta breaking, it'll be S+. If it's going to be trash, it'll be C tier, for example. But first up, we're going to do the design tier list. So first up, we have Bluestone Pendant, which is very similar in design to how it was prior to Season 5 starting. Enemies hit by damaging abilities take additional damage, additional 30 damage for the base form over 2 seconds. It then evolves into 2 different branches, which is how these items work. They have like a base form, and then once they evolve, which I think, as far as I know, they evolve once you hit level 20 or like a certain level, but the data mining is not completely accurate on that. But once they evolve, they could evolve into like one of either of 2 branches, basically. The first branch for Bluestone is they take 30 plus 7.5% current health over the 2 seconds, so that's basically just like extra bonus damage on the ability hit. And then the second branch of it is enemies hit by damaging abilities take an additional 75 damage over 5 seconds, but also have reduced attack speed, and that can stack up to twice. And then for each enemy afflicted, you also gain some attack speed. So it's basically like a way of sort of equalizing attack speed. So it's basically a way to sort of win boxing trades, I guess. So like you're reducing their attack speed, you're increasing yours. Overall, the design of Bluestone is pretty good, I would say. I'll give it an S design. It's not amazing, it's nothing groundbreaking, we've seen it before, but I always liked the design of Bluestone, and I think it's a really cool item. Obviously, it's basically very similar to how Crusher's passive works now, so I'm not sure what's going to happen with Crusher. Maybe they'll be reworking the items that are like similar to some of these starter items, like Crusher, for example. We'll see, but overall, I like the design of this. Next up is Death's Toll, which heals you on basic attack hits, so you get mana and health back every time you basic attack with reduced return for AoE basic attacks, obviously, like it used to be. The first upgrade basically ups that to 3% health and 3% mana on basic attack hits, that's pretty strong. And then the second upgrade is when an enemy dies, you gain 1 stack of Temper that provides 3.5% increased basic attack damage for 10 seconds, and that caps out at 10 stacks. So you can effectively get up to 35% increased basic attack damage with this item once you get it fully stacked, but you have to have like things dying near you pretty frequently. Overall, I think, much like Bluestone, these were sort of like counterparts to each other in the original starter item system, Death's Toll versus Bluestone Pendant. I think they're both pretty well designed. Death's Toll sort of is like a little bit more of a tanky sustain option, whereas Bluestone does a lot more damage. I like the design of these two. This next one, however, is not a reworked starter item. These two were reworked from their original forms prior to Season 5. This next one is completely new though, and that is Gilded Arrow. So the initial form, every 10 seconds the highest health enemy minion is marked, and if you secure the killing blow on that minion, you gain 10 bonus gold and 20% attack speed. And also you restore some mana as well. So effectively the idea of this item is that like when you're clearing waves, a certain minion is going to get marked, and if you clear the wave like efficiently and hit that minion and kill it, you're going to get some bonus stats. The first upgrade of this is when you kill an enemy, you gain 10 gold and 20% attack speed for 8 seconds, and that can stack up to 3 times. So if you're killing like many enemies, you can potentially get up to 60% attack speed from this item, like if you're clearing waves or whatever. That seems insanely strong. But we're not talking about power level for this first tier list, so just overall design. The second form for this one is all sources of gold gain are increased by 20%, and for every 100 gold in hand you have, you gain 1% attack speed and 0.8% crit chance, up to a max of 25 stacks. So effectively it's sort of like similar to Fafnir passive in a way. This item I think is awesome. I really love the design of this item. We're going to talk about balance later on. I think it's incredibly overpowered, but the base form of the item, I really like how it works in terms of design. Like the fact that you got to be efficient with your wave clear and like prioritize certain minions, it's sort of like a little mini game within the wave clear. I really like the idea of that. And yeah, I'm really hyped to see this item. I imagine it's going to be an ADC item for the most part, which is my least favorite role, but I may honestly try the role just so I can try out Gilded Arrow builds because it seems like a really interesting item to me. Next up, we have Warrior's Axe, which I'm using the Warrior's Blessing icon for because it's sort of like basically a rework of Warrior's Blessing, so this Warrior's Blessing icon stands for the Warrior's Axe. The base form is effectively very similar to how Warrior's Blessing is now. It gives some stats, damage reduction, health protections, and damaging an enemy god steals 25 health from them, so it deals 25 damage, restores 25 health to you, and that can only occur every 10 seconds, basically identical to current Warrior's Blessing. The upgrades for this, however, are very different. So the first one, damaging an enemy god steals 10% of current health away from your target and restores it to you, so that's just like a big upgrade on the base form. The cooldown is also dropped from 10 seconds to 7 seconds on that passive effect. And then the other branching upgrade, this is sort of like a theme with them. Generally, you'll have one branching upgrade that is like a bigger, beefier, like Big Brother version of the original item. And then you'll have a second branching upgrade, which is like sort of a twist effect where like the passive is completely different. So the second upgrade for this Warrior's Axe is the Hero's Axe, which when an ally god around you within 55 units, which is standard range basic attack range by the way, is hit by a hard crowd control effect, give them a shield equal to 15% of your maximum health. So this is your health, not their health, so often it's going to be a quite large shield if you're building this on a tank. This item I am quite a fan of. Mainly the Hero's Axe is really cool. Obviously the base form of the item is just generic Warrior's Blessing, which I'm not a huge fan of, but the Hero's Axe really makes me want to place it higher. Like, normal Warrior's Blessing, I'm really not a fan of and will be like B or C, but I think based on the fact that Hero's Axe is a really cool implementation of it, like if you know, one of your backline carries gets hard crowd controlled, you can give them a shield based on your health. I think that's really cool. So I'm going to put it in A. It will be a lot lower if it wasn't for the Hero's Axe upgrade of this though. Swiftwing, I have included here, although we don't really have any information on it. I'll put up on screen what we do have on Swiftwing, but we only have the base form of the item. We don't have any of the upgrades for it. In terms of like just how Swiftwing works as like a base item, I don't really see why you would ever want it over one of the base forms, but it's an okay design. I mean, it's basically Talaria boost. I'll put it in B for now, but keep in mind that we don't have the full upgrades for Swiftwing, so it's kind of hard to rate on like design and will also be very hard to rate on balance as well. Next up we have Mannequin Scepter, which was effectively an item that was going to be put into the game in one of the PTS phases for I think season 3, although I'm not entirely sure, maybe it was season 4. Something like that. It was basically going to be an item that was added to the game, and it's like a sort of a basic attack version of Bluestone Pendant that we just discussed earlier. So the base form is that enemies hit by your basic attacks are burned, taking 20 physical damage over 2 seconds, so like I said, very similar to Bluestone passive, and they also have their attack speed reduced by 7%. Jungle monsters take 2.5 times the amount of damage though, and this effect can stack up to 4 times. The first upgrade is the Big Brother version of the original item. Enemies hit by your basic attacks are burned, taking 60 physical damage over 2 seconds and having attack speed slowed by 10%. Jungle monsters and bosses take quadruple the damage. This effect can stack up to 4 times. And then the wildcard upgrade is passive. If you have not taken or dealt damage in the last 5 seconds and hit an enemy god, jungle monster, or jungle boss, they immediately take 20% of their maximum health as physical damage and are slowed by 20% for 5 seconds. So this item I think is really cool. It sort of has interesting interactions with the jungle. It's not the main jungle item. That's a Bumba's Mask that I have here that we'll talk about in a second. But it does have interesting interactions in like doing bonus damage to jungle monsters and things like that. I really like the fact that jungle bosses take quadruple damage on this effect. It means you can sort of burn down objectives pretty fast if you go this route. Overall, I think the item's pretty cool, but I wouldn't say it's on the level of these upper ones here. I think A tier is pretty fine for it. It's a pretty basic item. It's basically the basic attack version of Bluestone Pendant, which maybe I should actually move it up here, since it's very similar to Bluestone Pendant, and I do like some of the upgrades. I think S is probably fine for it, actually. It's about on par with Bluestone Pendant, I would say. So speaking of Boombas and the jungle item, it's called Boomba's Dagger now, but I've got the old Boomba's Mask icon here, which is basically the jungle item. So the base form of this item is basically very similar to how Assassin's Blessing works now and always has worked in terms of jungle items. Your basic attacks deal 15 true damage and your abilities deal plus 30% damage versus jungle camps. When a jungle monster is killed, you heal for 10% of its health and restore 25 mana. So like I said, very similar to Assassin's Blessing in terms of the base form here. The first upgrade is your basic attacks deal 50 true damage and abilities 50% damage against jungle camps, structures, and jungle bosses. When any of these die, you are healed for 10% of the health, restore 10% mana, and are given 10 gold. And then the second upgrade for it is Boomba's Hammer. After casting an ability, your next basic attack deals an additional 80 true damage. After hitting a basic attack empowered by Boomba's Hammer, your active cooldowns are reduced by 1 second, and you're healed for 5% max health. So this item is a little bit of a hodgepodge of a bunch of different abilities, which is kind of strange, but obviously it's going to be the main jungle item, so it's very important to sort of get this down. I feel like this is what you kind of have to go in jungle, so it's important to get this to be like a really fun and useful item. Overall, I think it's fine. It's nothing groundbreaking. It's basically the standard jungle item that we've always seen. The upgrades are like, okay, they don't really interest me that much. The second one is kind of pretty cool. I like you deal an additional 80 true damage after casting an ability and stuff like that. But I think A tier is pretty fine for this one. The next one up is Sands of Time, which is another rework from the starter items that we had prior to Season 5. This one is basically the replacement for Mage's Blessing. The Mage's Blessing is actually modeled after this original starter item that we had. So it gives stats, and then the item gives 2 MP5 per 10% of your missing mana. So like I said, very similar to Mage's Blessing. The first upgrade is like the amped up version, where you gain 4 MP5 per 10% of missing mana, and then also an additional 7 magical power per 10% of available mana. So potentially up to 70 extra magical power if you're at full mana. And then the big one that everyone's complaining about, the second upgrade for this is the alternate timeline. When you would die, you instead find a timeline where you are still alive, becoming CC and damage immune, unable to act. After 1.75 seconds, you are restored to 33% health and mana and can act again. This can only occur every 6 minutes though, so a very long cooldown on this, but this is basically a self-res for mages / mid laners, whoever's going to build this item. I'm personally not crazy about adding revives to the game. People are saying it's going to break the game and be overpowered. It's not going to be overpowered. There's a very important distinction here. It's not going to be overpowered, but it's terrible design in my opinion. I don't think you should have a res in the game like that that's like neutral. Anyone can buy it. Like Kepriel is fine, but I don't think everyone should be able to buy just like a res like that. I think that's bad design. So I'm going to put this in C. Actually, no, I'll put it in B, because the rest of the item's fine. It's just that specific upgrade that I'm not really a big fan of in terms of design. So I'll put it in B, actually. But yeah, I'm really not a big fan of the alternate timeline in terms of design. In terms of balance, I think it's actually pretty balanced. People are complaining that it's going to be overpowered. It's not going to be overpowered. It's just bad design, in my opinion. So I'm going to put it in B. Vampiric Shroud was one of the other mage starter items, sort of like the counterpart to Sands of Time, and the way that Death's Toll was the counterpart to Bluestone Pendant back in the day. So this one you might not actually know what it did prior to Season 5, because it wasn't really reworked into a blessing in the way that Sands of Time was reworked into Mage's Blessing. So this one is that damaging any enemy with an ability gives you a bonus 6 health and 5 mana, and that occurs per target. So like if you're hitting a full wave of 6 minions, you're going to proc that 6 times. So sort of like an ability version of Death's Toll, basically, where like when your abilities hit, you get restored health and mana for that. The first upgrade is the Bloodsoaked Shroud. Damaging enemies gives you 12 health and 6 mana, so like an amped up version of the original passive, and additionally, you gain 1% magical lifesteal for 6 seconds. So 1% doesn't sound like a lot, but the fact that you can hit like multiple targets, you know, if you hit all 6 minions in the wave, that's going to be an additional 6% lifesteal. And if you're using 2 abilities to clear a wave, you can stack that up to 12 stacks, 12% magical lifesteal. It will add up, and there's also some base lifesteal on the item and stuff like that. So it may seem like not very much, but it is actually pretty significant. And then the second upgrade is the Sacrificial Shroud, which is a bunch of stats, and then passive. Your abilities deal 15% more damage, but at the cost of 5% maximum health. I love this. This is potentially one of, if not my favorite upgrade of any of these starter items. I love the fact that you have some kind of trade-off for like a big power boost. I think that's really awesome. It's kind of like how the masks should be designed, in my opinion, you know, like Reinder's mask and stuff like that. I think that's how they should be designed. I think this is really awesome, and just based on the fact of the second upgrade alone, I really love this item. I also like the idea of like the base item. I always liked using Vamp Shroud back in the day, but Sacrificial Shroud, that is awesome. I love that, and it has to be S+ tier for me in terms of design. So this next one up is Sentinel's Gift, which is this icon here. I did my best with these icons. Some of them are a bit wacky, but obviously we don't have icons for these items yet. It's just data mining, so these are just like Google searched images that hopefully made a bit of sense. So this one's Sentinel Gift here, which is basically the rework of Guardian's Blessing or the original Watcher's Gift. So it has some health, some defenses, and being within assist range of a minion or jungle camp monster death without dealing the killing blow was 7 bonus gold and 12 health and 8 mana. And if you're not near an allied god for 20 seconds, this passive is disabled, so basically identically to how Guardian's Blessing works right now for the base form. The upgraded form is assisting an enemy target dying, provides 15 bonus gold and 15 bonus gold, and restores 3% of your health and mana, so it's like an amped up version of the original passive. 3% health and mana seems pretty strong. And then the second upgrade here is really interesting to me. The passive evenly splits 120 physical and magical protection among all nearby allied gods, including yourself. And if you're alone, you only gain 60. So I think the second upgrade, once again, a lot of the times for me, like the second upgrade is what is really interesting about the item. I think it's really cool. The fact that you can like split procs between your allies, like, you know, you could just stick with like just your mage in the backline and then you get 60 and they get 60, and that's really powerful. Or you could be around your whole team and give everyone 20 of each pros. Like it can be used in different ways, and I think that's really cool. and very quintessential to how a support would play in terms of like sitting in the back line. And like if you're in the back line near your hunter and your mage, like as a little core 3 in the back line when you're peeling for them, you're giving yourself and your mage and your hunter 40 of each pros, which I think is really cool. So I'm going to rate this one probably S. I don't think it's quite as cool as like the Gilded Arrow mechanics or the Sacrificial Shroud, but this is probably an upper S tier. I really like the second upgrade for this one. War Flag is a rework of like the original physical support item that like warriors and assassins would buy. No one really bought it back in the day, but they've reworked it here, so maybe people will buy it now. Being in range of a minion or jungle camp death without dealing the killing blow restores 6 health and 6 mana to all allies within 55 units, and also provides allies with a stacking self buff of 1% movement speed and 2% attack speed, which lasts 8 seconds and stacks up to 10 times. So essentially this is the more aggressive version of Sentinel's gifts that we just discussed. You're not getting the bonus gold, so like it might hamper your farm a little bit, but you still do get some healing. But then also you can stack up to 10 times, so that's up to 10% movement speed and 20% attack speed to like you and your ADC when you're clearing and lane and stuff like that. So it's essentially a more aggressive version of Sentinel's Gift. The first upgrade is the amped up version, so being in range of a minion or jungle camp death without dealing the killing blow restores 1% health and mana to all allies in 55 units, and also provides 2% movement speed and 4% attack speed. So it's sort of just like an amped up version. And then the second upgrade is when you damage an enemy god, you call down a Spartan flag at your location, providing 10% increased power to allies that stand in the radius, and that lasts for 10 seconds. So I do like the idea of the Spartan flag thing. It's sort of like a Hachiman flag in a way that like once you drop it down, like if you stand in it you can get benefits and stuff, and I do like the idea of having like an aggressive support item, because like right now you kind of can go Warrior's Blessing, but not really. It's like going Warrior's Blessing in support is kind of troll, and doesn't really work all that well. Like you kind of need to go Guardian's Blessing. So I do like the idea of having an aggressive support thing, but for me it's just not that interesting really. Like yeah, you can stack up some attack speed and movement speed, but it's sort of, I think they could do a lot more with this. So I'll go for A. It's not a bad design, but it's not a great design. It's very mediocre, which is what A tier is for. So I think that's a perfect place for it. Tainted Steel is a completely new item here. That's this one, the green sword. It's like tainted. This is my best I've done with like some Google searching and quick photo editing. So yeah, this is Tainted Steel. So this one is the passive enemy gods that you hit have their healing reduced by 25%. So that's like in a starter item. Pretty interesting. The upgraded version is the same thing, but 60% anti-heal. And the second upgrade here is only 20% anti-heal, but you are also healed for 100% of the healing reduced. So for me, I don't like this. I don't think anti-heal should be on a basic starter item like this. I think it's better if it's sort of items that you build a little later in your build. I also have issues with like the fact that it's 60% anti-heal on Tainted Breastplate. Like, will that stack with Divine Ruin and you can just buy Divine Ruin and Tainted Breastplate, and then if you hit a single ability on someone, they're 100% anti-healed? That should not be the case. No god, excluding like abilities, you know, like Sobek or whatever. No god, like just with 2 items, should be able to 100% anti-heal someone with 1 ability. That should never be the case. I hate healers as much as the next guy. I absolutely despise healers. Fuck Hell and Afro and all that shit. But you should not be able to 100% anti-heal someone with 1 ability. That just shouldn't be the case. So I think I have to go with like a C tier design on this. I really don't think anti-heal and a starter item is something we need in the game. And I'm really hoping they sort of rework this before they launch the game. Or at the very least nerf some of the stats, because 60% anti-heal should not be like on an item that can combine with like Divine Ruin or Brawler's Beatstick. That should just not be the case. Obviously I'm bleeding into balance a little bit there. But yeah, I'm not a fan of the design of this one. So next up we have Benevolence, which is sort of another take on the support item. So like I said, these starter items sort of give you options. So you have like the Sentinel's Gift, you have the War Flag, and then you have the Benevolence, which is sort of like the 3 options for like your Guardian starter items, or your support starter items I should say, not necessarily Guardians. So Benevolence is passive. You gain 2 gold per 5 and 1 XP 5, so you gain 2 gold every 5 seconds or 1 XP every 5 seconds additionally to what you would normally get. And you also gain additional XP 5 and GP 5 equal to 0.5 times your level. And anytime you would gain experience or gold from slaying enemies, you only gain 90% of that reward, but share 10% with a nearby ally. So like if you sign dual lane or whatever, you essentially sort of increase your ADC's farm a little bit. The first upgrade is Compassion. Damage taken by nearby allies is reduced by 15% up to a maximum of 100 damage, and the reduced damage is redirected to you as magical damage, but if it would kill you, it doesn't get redirected. And then the second upgrade is your basic attack steal bonus damage equal to 4% max health as magical damage, which is doubled against structures. I like the design of both the upgrades. I think they're cool, but they don't fit on the same item. Really, like one is very supportive, like you're reducing damage that they're taking, and then the second one is like dealing bonus max health magical damage, like it's sort of a kin size effect. They don't fit on the same item. It's possible that because it's data mining, these aren't actually on the same tree, and animosity is part of a different item. Like maybe this is Mannequin Scepter or something like that, doing max health damage on hit instead of like flat damage. That's possible. But if these are meant to be on the same item, which is what it's listed as here, so I've got to take it at face value, I'll give it a B tier design because... No, actually, I'll give it A. Because I like the design of them. I just don't think they really fit on the same item, and this whole item doesn't really make sense to me, despite each upgrade or like each iteration actually being pretty cool. Next up is Leather Cowl, which is this icon here. While you're near an allied god, you have 10% attack speed, but if you're alone, you have 5% movement speed. The upgrade of it is the amped up version, so while you're nearby an allied god, you have a 25% attack speed aura, so it's like Shogun's Kasari, it'll give that to your entire team if you're near your entire team. And if you're alone, you gain 10% movement speed. And then the second upgrade, the passive is for each nearby friendly god, you gain a stack of Outnumber, and for each enemy god, you lose a stack of Outnumber. Each stack of Outnumber provides 3% increased power to all nearby allied gods. So essentially, for each time you outnumber them, makes sense, you gain like an increased power effect. So if you have like 5 nearby gods and they have 3, you'll have 2 stacks of this, so 6% increased power to all nearby allied gods. So this one's a little weird. I do like the idea of like having a modular effect where like if you're near an allied god, you gain a different benefit to if you're not near an allied god. I think that's a very cool effect. Maybe on like junglers or whatever, you know, if you're alone roaming the jungle, you get movement speed to get to camps faster, but when you're on a gank and you're near an allied god, you get the extra attack speed. I think that's pretty cool. The second design, I'm not a big fan of though. The outnumber thing is sort of like really snowbally. Like if you're at a 5 for 3 advantage in a team fight, you're already winning that. I don't think you really need an item that's going to give you an even bigger benefit when you're already 2 gods up in a team fight. So I'm not a big fan of the second upgrade, but the first 2 are pretty cool in my opinion. So I'll put it in A tier because I do like some of it, but don't like some of it. Next up is Conduit Gem, which is this one here, another completely new item. This isn't modeled off of like any old starter items or blessings or anything like that. So the initial form, every second you gain a stack of arcane energy, causing your next damaging ability to deal an additional 2 damage and remove all stacks. After these stacks are consumed, you cannot gain stacks for 6 seconds, and it stacks up to 20 times, so effectively up to 40 bonus damage on your next ability as long as you're waiting. The first upgrade is the upgraded version. Every second you gain a stack of Demise, causing your next ability to deal an additional 2.5% of magical power and remove all stacks. Stacks up to 10 times, so you can get effectively up to a bonus 50% magical power in damage, which late game is going to be as high as like 300, 350, potentially as high as 400 extra damage on that ability, so that seems pretty good. And then the other upgrade, the Gem of Focus. Every time you cast an ability that costs mana, you gain a stack of Focus for 10 seconds, providing 3% movement speed, 3% damage increase, and 2% damage reduction. This stacks up to 3 times, so this is definitely something you want to be going on a god like Hebo or any god that has abilities that you can spam to keep this effect up reliably, because at 3 stacks, it's 9% speed, 9% damage increase, and 6% damage reduction. That's pretty powerful. So overall, I like the idea of this item, in that like if you're patient and you're waiting like 20 seconds between an ability cast, you get like an additional thing. So yeah, I kind of like it. It's nothing insane though, so I think I'll just put it in A tier. Like, it's pretty cool. It's not something like groundbreaking though. So last 2 here, we have the Eye of the Jungle, which we don't actually have the base form. There's no information on the base form of the item yet. But it's meant to be a jungle item, so I assume it has some kind of way to like increase your jungle clear speed or whatever like that. The first upgrade is passive. You deal 25% increased damage to jungle monsters and jungle bosses, and upon defeating a large jungle monster or jungle boss, you gain the ability to see wards for 10 seconds. So this is going to allow you to effectively like clear a camp or whatever, and then you can run around like hunting for wards, which I think is pretty cool. Like maybe you could even invade. Like it doesn't say you have to defeat a friendly jungle boss or anything like that. So if you like invade an enemy camp, you can walk around their jungle looking for their wards, and it's effectively like a way for you to be a mobile sentry ward. I think that's a really cool aspect of the item. And then the second upgrade is sort of the same thing but reversed in a way. So you deal 30% increased damage to jungle monsters, and upon defeating a large jungle monster, you place a ward that lasts for 30 seconds. So that's going to allow you to ward your own jungle. You could also use it for invades as well, like you could with the other one. So if you invade an enemy camp, you get a ward on it for 30 seconds, so you can see when like they come and check that camp or whatever. This is a really cool item, I think. I really like the design of this. This is like an S or maybe even an S plus item. I really like the idea of like junglers playing around with vision and being able to like chase down enemy wards, go on like a hunt for a ward once you've killed a camp and stuff like that, or like invade enemy camps and get vision on what they're doing and stuff. I think that's a lot cooler than the way Assassin's Blessing is designed right now, which is just like, herder, me do more damage to camps, me gain penetration. Like I think it's a very cool way of doing the jungle item. So I think I'm actually going to put this in S+. I'm a big fan of this. Obviously, we haven't seen the initial version, but like I said, it's probably just some kind of like damage increase to jungle camps or whatever. That tends to be what jungle items are. And finally, we have the Warding Sigil, which is this icon down here. Whenever you're hit by an ability, you gain a stack of dampening, decreasing damage you take by 5 for 5 seconds. This occurs once per ability cast and can stack up to twice. The first version is the amped up version of the original item. Whenever you are hit by an ability, you gain a stack of Rebuke, decreasing damage taken by 4% for 5 seconds. Once per ability cast can stack up to 3 times, so up to 12% damage reduction. And then the alternate upgrade, we have whenever you're hit by an ability, your Infused Sigil gains a stack. This occurs once per ability. At 10 stacks, it explodes after 0.5 seconds, dealing 400 magical damage to enemies within 30 units of you. I accidentally just dropped this thing in C tier. It's not C tier. I can't actually move it out of C tier. I think this is like, it's an interesting item for sure. Like, being able to take decreased damage, you know, like, allows you to sort of, it's good against low cooldown abilities like Heroes 1 or whatever, but it allows you to sort of, like, dive in, and if they're focusing you, you're gonna take a bit less damage. So, like, if you really are getting hardcore focused in fights, you could buy this and it could protect you. But it is a starter item. You're not necessarily gonna know if you're getting hard focused. I feel like this will maybe work better on an item that you build later in your build or so. But to be fair, you could also go into the alternate upgrade, the one where it, like, explodes and deals magical damage, which I think is quite cool. Obviously, it allows your enemies to track it, so like that, and a smart player will know like how many abilities you've been hit by like recently in the team fight, and will roughly know if you're about to do that big like damage aura. But I think it's pretty cool, honestly. It's A or S. I think it's A. It's not that interesting, but I do like it overall. So that's the design tier list. My favorite 3 are the new Vamp Shroud, the Eye of the Jungle, which is the one that like places the wards and stuff, and then the Gilded Arrow, which is like the farming-based ADC item where it marks a minion, you can get bonus gold and stuff. And then I'm really not a fan of this anti-heal sword item. I really don't like that at all. But yeah, that's the design tier list based on like how much I like them overall and think if they're healthy for the game or not. Let's move into the balance tier list, which is going to be completely disregarding the design of them and how much I like them, just purely how strong I think they will be in the new meta. So this one's going to be a little faster because you already know what the items do. I've just explained them all, so I'm just going to talk briefly about like how strong I think they'll be. Bluestone Pendant overall seems like a very balanced item to me. It's sort of tried and true. We've seen Bluestone Pendant in the game before and it wasn't completely broken like the base version of the item, and then the upgrades are pretty modest, I would say. 7.5% of current health on ability hits seems quite strong, but current health is a nice check for it. It's not maximum health, so you're not going to be doing tons of damage. Like if they're low health, it does less damage overall. So I think Bluestone is going to be a pretty balanced starter item. Why do I have a D tier here? I don't want a D tier. Go away. There we go. I just want the 5 tiers. So yeah, this is going to be a pretty balanced item. Death's Toll to me seems pretty good though. The base form of the item, once again, kind of like Bluestone Pendant. It's tried and true. It won't be that overpowered. But mainly Death's Embrace. Hitting an enemy with a basic attack restores 3% health and 3% mana. We've seen this before with Old Soul Eater. 3% health heal. It was really strong and actually had to be changed. 3% health on like fast attack chains like Kali or Erlang Shen just seems really strong, and it's also 3% mana as well. Plus the old Soul Eater was only on god hits. This one doesn't specify god hits, it just has hitting an enemy, which means it works on minions. I'm not a big fan of being able to just 3% health heal on every basic attack I do on a minion. You're going to be immortal with that. It could be a typo or like a data mining issue, and maybe it will only be gods, but I think I'm going to be up to S+, actually. Like, 3% health heal when it procs on minions, that is not okay, bro. That is going to be incredibly overpowered if they add it to the game in that state. Plus, just the stats on the item. 80 physical power, 140 magical power, 200 health. That's very strong. The Death's Tempo one also seems pretty good, like 50 power, 30% attack speed, 100 health, and up to 35% increased basic attack damage. That also seems really good, but not quite as strong as Death's Embrace. I think the Death's Embrace is going to be the one that really kind of breaks the item. Gilded Arrow seems strong. Probably not completely breaking the game, but probably above the point of balance, I would say. So an S tier placement from me. Mainly because of Diamond Arrow. The rest of it seems pretty fine, but the Diamond Arrow, which is the one where like for every 100 gold in hand, you gain 1% attack speed and 0.8% crit. That seems really strong. The base item has 60 basic attack damage and 150 health, which is pretty good, but then the passive there, it stacks up to 25 times, so you're getting up to 25% attack speed and 20% crit, plus 60 basic attack damage and 150 health. That's a lot of stats that a hunter can make use of, so I think it's going to be pretty strong. Warrior's Axe, which is this Warrior's Blessing. This one also seems pretty strong overall. One of the upgrades is damaging an enemy god steals 10% current health, which once again, it's current health, so you're not going to be able to do a lot to people that are like lower health. Like if they're at half health, it's only 5% effectively. So it's not as strong as you would think it is if it was max health, but that does still seem really strong. 10% current health if they're at full health is going to be a big swing in health there. But Also, the Hero's Axe seems pretty good as well. Like 15% of a tank's max health. Say you're at 3,000, 15% of that is 450 health and a shield to your carry. It's like essentially a better Geb shield that activates when they get hit by hard CC. So that does seem really strong. I think I'm going to put this one in S. Swiftwing, we haven't seen the full upgrades of them, so I really can't rate it on balance. I think I'll just leave it down here. There's no point in me putting it on the tier list when we've not seen the upgraded versions of it yet. Mannequin Scepter also seems good, mainly because of Mannequin's Hidden Blade, which is one where if you haven't dealt damage in the last 5 seconds and you hit an enemy god, jungle monster, or jungle boss, they immediately take 20% max health as physical damage. That seems just completely busted. Like, 20% of someone's health just like immediately, as long as you've been out of combat for 5 seconds. Not only on gods, but also on like Fire Giant. Like Fire Giant just starting with 20% less health effectively. That's going to allow you to burn it so much faster. Also, yeah, it's 20% max health, not current health, so you can steal Fire Giant with that. If you've just not been in combat for the last 5 seconds, 20% of the Fire Giant's health is going to out-secure any mage secure. So you can just steal FG with that. That seems really strong. The base form and the other upgrades seem totally fine, but like I think I have to put this one in S+, dude. Like 20% max health is just not okay. Like I said, you can steal Fire Giant, you can burn Fire Giant really quickly. You can just like initiate a fight and someone takes 20% of their max health and damage. That just seems really good to me. Boomba's Dagger, so I have Boomba's Masket. This seems really weak. It's just like a very basic jungle item. The upgrades on it aren't that great. Like the first upgrade is just like, it only really works on jungle camps. You get a little bit of extra farm, like you're given 10 extra gold for each time you kill something, so you can get like a lot of extra farm with that, but overall it just doesn't seem that strong to me. The other upgrade where you deal an additional 80 true damage after casting an ability is very good, but like Hydra's Lament kind of does that already and it's not broken, it's just okay. So I really don't think this is very good. I think I'll put this in like B or probably B tier. I don't think it's quite like C tier, like unusable, but it doesn't seem that good. Sands of Time, so like the base item of this, providing you potentially up to 70 additional magical power on top of the 90 that it has, is like pretty decent, and then the alternate timeline that everyone's complaining about will just be fine. Like it's a res, but it's effectively just like an Aegis on a 6-minute cooldown. It's not going to be that good. I think I'll put it in like A. I think it's fine, but not very powerful particularly. Vampiric Shroud, so despite me loving the design of this item, it's going to be very weak. 15% increased damage, but at the cost of 5% of your maximum health. That's typically not going to be a trade in your favor, really. A typical mage late game is going to have around 2,000 health, so like 5% of that is what? 100? So like it needs to be 15% of your ability's damage needs to be more than 100, which it might be, but even then, you don't want to be just taking damage as the backliner. It just makes you very vulnerable to getting dived. I think that with a rebalance, this item could definitely be really good, because like I said, I like the design, but I think 5% of your max health for only 15% more damage isn't going to be worth it overall. And then also the Blood-Soaked Shroud really isn't that good either. Like the stats on it are okay, but the 1% magical lifesteal is probably going to be like 6% a lot of the time, which isn't really that good. Next up is Sentinel's Gift, which is like the base support item modeled after Guardian's Blessing that most people are probably going to be picking up. This seems absolutely broken, the second upgrade of it. That's kind of the story with a lot of these. The second upgrade is like insanely strong, but evenly splitting 120 protections among allied gods, that's just broken. Like if you're in the backline with just your ADC and your mid laner, that is 40 of each prots for you, 40 of each prots for your mid, 40 of each prots for your ADC. That is absolute nuts. Like 40 of each prots is like a spirit robe, I think, worth of protections. That's absolutely crazy. And then if you're with like just one of your backliners, that's 60 for you, 60 for them, which is a Mantle of Discord worth of protections for each of you. And even if you're in a team fight and you're near all 5 of your teammates, it's 20 of each. That's like a doubled Gauntlet of Thieves passive. It just seems crazy to me. The base form of the item is fine and not that great, but the second form of the item means I have to put this in S+. That is going to break the game if they put it in at 120. Luckily, it's a simple nerf. They can just nerf it down to like maybe even split 80 protections or something. But 120 is not where it's at. That's going to be incredibly overpowered. Moving on to War Flag, this is very weak. I think this is potentially one of the weakest ones. Based on the fact that like late game, you have to be in range of a minion or jungle camp death. It's sort of a similar thing with Talisman of Energy. That item is super strong if you can get the passive to like reliably go off, but often you can't in late game team fights. A lot of late game team fights happen around objectives in the jungle and stuff. And often it just is very difficult to get the passive stacked up because you need minion or jungle camp death. It's the same thing with this War Flag. I don't think it's going to be that good. And then the Spartan flag version of it, providing 10% increased power to allies that stand in the radius, that's good, but team fights in Smite are very mobile, and often you can't just like call that down and like stand in it. Often you'll be getting dived, or like you'll be diving someone and you're not going to be able to stand in the same spot a lot of the time. Pretty good for objectives, I guess, but you have to hit an enemy god, so it's not amazing. I might honestly put this thing in C. It really seems kind of weak to me. Tainted Steel is obviously this is the one that I despise the design of, the anti-heal item, but it's going to be good if they put it in at its current iteration. Just the Tainted Breastplate alone, 60% anti-heal for enemy gods that you hit. So that's basic attacks or abilities. You can combine it with Divine Ruin and Brawlers. I assume it will stack, because that's the precedent they've set, that most anti-heal items stack with each other. You can get 100% anti-heal from one ability on one god with just 2 items. That's stupid. It's going to make healers completely irrelevant. So that's going to be pretty strong. And then the other upgrade, the enemy gods 20% reduced healing, and you heal for 100% of the healing. That's not as strong, but it's still okay. Mainly it's just the 60% anti-heal on a starter item. Just no, please don't do that. So Benevolence is an interesting one. This is going to require a lot of math that I can't just do in my head while I'm making this Tierlist video. It will require a bigger analysis, but gaining 2 gold per 5 and 1 XP 5. So you got to multiply these values by 12 to get the per minute value, right? 5 times 12, yeah, that's 60. So multiply by 12, so you get 24 gold per minute extra and 12 XP per minute extra. That doesn't seem like a whole lot, but then you also get the additional, like, based on your level. So like if you're level 10, for example, you get an extra 5. So that would be 7 gold per 5, 6 XP 5. You got to multiply that by 12. 70, 84 gold per minute, and like an extra 72 XP per minute or something like that. Like I said, it's a lot of mental maths that I can't really just do in my head for this tier list video. But based on like some rough mental maths, it seems like it's going to be pretty balanced. I think they've worked pretty hard to make sure it's balanced. But obviously gaining extra farm in the history of Smite has been sort of like a razor thin margin. If you make it a little too strong, it breaks the game. Having extra farm, see Season 3 Golden Blade, for example, that allowed all the hunters to farm super easily. It made hunters break the game. So you got to be very careful with balancing this item, and it could be utterly broken. But to me, it looks pretty balanced. However, the animosity upgrade for this, like I said, this item's kind of like a hodgepodge of random stuff. I don't really see why it's all on the same item, but animosity, the one that your basic attacks deal 4% max health as magical damage, that's just a better kin size, because it deals magical damage instead of physical. So if they're building physical defense against you and like you're a hunter or something, for example, it's like if you're a physical and they're building, you know, physical defense against you, this deals magical damage. So like you're still going to kind of shred them. And 4% max health, that's more than kin size, right? I think kin size scales up, actually, so maybe it's not more than kin size against, like, a really high health enemy. But that seems really good to me, overall. And also, like, the XP5 seems strong, so I think I'll put this one in S. Just based on the animosity, mainly. Because it's kind of hard to calculate, like, for every different level, how strong the XP5 and gold per 5 is going to be. But also there's the aspect that it gives an extra 10% farm to, like you sacrifice a bit of your farm. To give some of your farm to the ADCs, like potentially you're going to get your ADC more fed, and like I said, ADCs getting more farm is incredibly scary, so it could be really broken. The leather cowl seems weak to me. The stats on it are just very lackluster, and like when you're near an ally god, the 25% attack speed aura is nice, but like Shoguns exists, that doesn't break the game. I don't think this will either. And if you're alone, 10% movement speed is not that good. Movement speed's powerful, don't get me wrong, but an entire passive of an item just to give you 10% movement speed, that's not that good. And then the outnumber thing, I said I hated the design of it, and I do, but I think the balance, it's not amazing. Like, if you're already outnumbering the enemies 5-3 in a fight, you don't need 6% increased power to be able to win that fight. If you have a 5-3 advantage, you're winning that fight anyway. You don't need this item, so I think it's overall pretty weak. So the gem here, where it stacks up while you're out of combat, and then like when you hit an ability, gives you bonus damage. The base form and the beefy form of the base form seem fine, but then like the wild card upgrade or whatever, as I like to call it, the one where you gain movement speed, damage increase, and damage reduction after hitting an ability, or actually just casting ability. You don't even have to hit it. Casting ability that costs mana. So like if you're using Yana's portals or Yana's 3 or whatever, that's gonna stack it up. This seems really strong. Like, having 9% movement speed, 9% damage increase, and 6% damage taken reduction, don't underestimate how powerful that will be. I think this is going to be pretty strong, so I'm going to drop this one in S. So this Eye of the Jungle is not going to be good. I'm going to put it in C. Similar to Warflag, actually, it's also down in C. It's just completely a useless item for like late game team fighting. It's just not going to be good. And finally, we have the Warding Sigil, which is the one where like you take decreased damage after you get hit by an ability, and it's like stacks up. So like if you're getting hit by a ton of abilities, you're taking a lot of reduced damage. It can stack up to like 12% decrease in damage taken. And you're realistically gonna get hit by 3 abilities in a team fight pretty quickly if you're diving the backline. I assume you kind of go this on like a tanky god, or maybe even a jungler. You're gonna get hit by 3 abilities pretty fast, and 12% damage reduction is nothing to laugh at. That's a pretty large amount of damage reduction. And then the second upgrade, when you hit by an ability, you're gonna stack and then you explode and deal magical damage. That's also pretty good. And the base stats on that version are actually like pretty good. 350 health, 25 prots of each, not too bad. To me, this just seems pretty balanced, though. I don't think this is going to break the game, but I think it's pretty fine. And so that's my balance / power level tier list for these. Often, the ones that are high up, like especially the ones in S+, it's because they have one like really broken upgrade that I think is just going to completely destroy the game. And the ones that are down here are like ones that aren't really very useful late game. Like they're okay for like laning phase and mid game stuff, but once you get to the late game, they're not going to be that good. So yeah, that's my overall ratings on both design and power level. Obviously, they don't correlate pretty much whatsoever. Like the design of the item has almost no effect on how strong it will actually be in the game for me. There's some designs that I really like the ward jungle thing that's absolute hot garbage. But yeah, that's my thoughts on them. Leave your thoughts down below, like if you have a couple of favorites or whatever, and why you like them. You know, do you like the design? Do you think they're going to be very balanced? Whatever. Leave that down below, and I'll catch you guys in another one later on. Have a great day, and peace out, you nerds.